Have you ever dropped something that shattered into 100 pieces? Maybe it was your favorite coffee mug, a picture frame, a family keepsake. Once it broke, you looked at it differently, right? Not because it had changed its purpose, but because it had changed its condition. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at yourself that way? Have you ever thought, I've been through so much, maybe something inside of me is broken? If you've ever had that thought, today's conversation is especially for you because I want to challenge one of the biggest lies childhood trauma teaches us. The lie that because something happened to us, something must be wrong with us. Welcome to the Katrina Johnson Show, a safe space for women healing from childhood trauma, and where we believe that information plus inspiration equals transformation. One of the saddest things trauma can steal isn't our confidence, but it isn't our joy. It even is not our peace. It's our identity. Because trauma has a way of convincing us that what happened to us is who we are. If we were rejected, we begin believing we're unlovable. If we were criticized, we begin believing we're not enough. If we were neglected, we begin believing we don't matter. If we experience instability, we begin believing we'll never feel safe. Notice something. Those aren't facts. Those are conclusions, and healing often begins when we learn to separate our experiences from our identity. Now, there was a time in my own life growing up when I did not feel worthy to be seen. I mean that literally. I was so shy that in high school, I would take the long way to my classes just to avoid walking past the group of male athletes who would gather at what we called the A building. I carried so much shame. I felt embarrassed because of the violation that had happened to me. I just didn't feel like I was worthy to be seen, as weird as that may sound. So as I grew older, I couldn't help but wonder if the reason I was so shy around people outside of my family and struggled with such low self-worth was connected to my childhood trauma. I believe that if I just kept to myself, if I stayed quiet, maybe no one would notice me. Maybe no one would find out. And somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that staying visible was the safest way to protect myself. Looking back now, I realized that survival strategy slowly became part of my identity. It affected the way I saw myself. It affected my confidence, and ultimately, it affected my sense of self-worth. But healing has taught me something. Worth isn't something you earn. Worth is something you recognize. There's a difference. And once I began to see myself through God's eyes, everything started to change. My mindset shifted from focusing on past to believing, regardless of what happened to me, I am moving forward in love. Loving God, learning to love myself, and little by little, that is how I began to rebuild my self-worth. Notice I didn't say it happened overnight. Healing is a journey. It took years for me to fully recognize my potential and to let go of the emotional crutches that had been holding me back. But every step forward reminded me of one important truth. I wasn't ever broken. I was healing. There is a difference between self-esteem and self-worth. Self-esteem often rises and falls with performance. Self-worth remains steady. Why? Because your value isn't determined by your latest success or your latest mistake. Healing doesn't restore your worth. Healing helps you recognize the worth that was there all along. Never forget that. Here's our mastermind moment. You were never broken. You were wounded. There is a difference. Broken things have no future. Wounded people heal. Never confuse the two. And let's do some reflecting. Every time you catch yourself saying, I'm not enough this week, this is what I want you to do. Pause, replace it with, I am healing and my worth has never been up for debate. Then simply notice how that changes the conversation you have with yourself. I hope that you got some value out of this video and this podcast episode. Share it with someone that you think needs to hear it. Share and like and leave comments. It really helps to bring you more valuable information. And until next time, stay inspired.